I, my name is Mike Gonella, and I'm presenting on the new ethnobotanical database that I've been helping develop, Mahkihkiwa. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history first, as we all are. So I began my graduate work here at Miami in 2001, and through previous work, I'm from California, and through previous work with the Forest Service in California, I got linked up with some native communities there that were doing harvesting and gathering on the national forest I was working in. And I just got interested in that. So when my wife drugged me to live in Cincinnati, and I started graduate school here at Miami, I was interested in doing ethnobotanical work, but I wasn't really sure how I would do that. But I was fortunate to get an email. Daryl Baldwin had just started his Myaamia project work here at the university and was looking for some assistance with some of the plant knowledge that he was learning or had known, and we were trying to decide what to do with it. And that's when the earliest database took off. So I basically have learned that with the Myaamia tribe, the Myaamia community, I've basically been a gatherer of plant knowledge, someone who came along and could help just gather the knowledge where it was learned or where it was found and organize it. And I'm really good at organizing things, so I really enjoyed building this database. But from these list of different plant terms that came from different historic sources and plant use information, and some information that came out of language research from Dr. David Costa, Microsoft Access database was created. This looks a little different than my copy. And here is my version. Dr. Shriver said his nerd slide. This is my plant nerd slide, but it really isn't. I consider myself more an ecologist than a botanist in some ways, because this is the Microsoft Access, a screenshot of the database, and it's just all this information. I tried to put as much possible information, the fields for that information, to house it as we learn. So it was a lot of it was Myaamia plant use knowledge, cultural uses of the food uses, medicine uses, things like that, things that I learned and gathered together. But there's also other things there too, listed on this screenshot. And I don't know why I choose bright green as the background when I made this database. But there's a description of the plant, there's the habitats that it's found in, the type of Myaamia uses, the categories. And again, don't spend too much time trying to figure out what's on here, because this is the first one that just tried to include everything. And that is partly the ecologist perspective that I have. Each plant isn't just an individual being, it's connected to so many other things that define it, which really, now I can see that that's useful, because it really is more of a Myaamia perspective on living things in the natural world too. So what I did was gather sources of Myaamia plant knowledge from historic documents, as I mentioned, also from the Miami tribe of Oklahoma's archives. There were documents, recorded interviews, and just discussions among relatives. And then I also started just going to as many tribal events as I could and talking to people and writing down the plant knowledge and putting it into the kind of crude, exhaustive database that was the first one. And we, at some point a few years ago, with discussions mostly with Daryl, and as ILDA became more live and used and developed, we saw that there was a need for something less cumbersome than that other database, than the Access database. Something like slim it down to the things that people really would be useful for people. So community members could access it and learn about different types of uses of plants, maybe where they're harvested or just background on them. And that's when this Mahkihkiwa was started to be developed. And this is the homepage of that site. And it has, right now it's just kind of getting up and going. And for me, I was just saying to Daryl that it's been a good education for me to look at the other websites and realize there's so much connectivity between them. So this also has connectivity to the ILDA dictionary and archive. This one now has, let's show you a little bit of it. Slimmed down version, more user-friendly of the original database, things that people would really want to know. And new information is coming in from ILDA too, and from new document translations, transcriptions. I get new plant knowledge and I'll find the place where I think it best goes or places. And try to always keep thinking of the audience, which is the Myaamia community. Eventually scholars too could use it too, but that's mostly what it's about. Yeah, this is a different version of my talk, so there's a lot of slides that I don't have. Let me kind of just go on by verbally telling you about it. Yeah, what you're seeing here is just the first iteration. So we've just got about 20 to 25 species input and uploaded into this. And the process of them becoming public is not to be controlling or secretive. It's that we want the information that's put out there to be the most accurate that we can. Mostly focused on, I'd say, the accuracy of the Myaamia terms, and then also the knowledge that's inherent in that's being presented. So what maybe all good ethnographers do, and I'm sort of one, is write down or record what is the information that's presented and do it in a way that's as unbiased as possible. And I think that's one of the things that I'm behind on this new database is that the information on the plants is presented as is. So as the recorder, it could have been a historian or a lieutenant colonel in the French army or a Jesuit missionary or a Myaamia person that's alive now or is no longer alive, however they were recorded, that's how it's presented in the database. So I'm not, and when I first created the first database in Access, there were, I tended to summarize what was said and kind of like the plant uses, cultural uses of plants. And in this second go around, I realized, well, that's kind of adding bias onto bias because every single ethnographer, every person that records someone else's something, whatever they say or do, it gets a little skewed. It's like that game Telephone. And so if I wrote kind of what I thought they meant on top of what this Jesuit missionary thought they meant, the Myaamia people, then it's, we're losing a little bit more. So what we see in the database now, or what people will see, is exactly what was written, even if it was, kind of offensively biased. The word savage is used a lot by the Jesuit missionaries and some historians, and they'll say what they thought because they were writing to people. Some of these explorers were writing about the Myaamia culture and to write back to Europe, where they came from and were funded by, so it really becomes quite skewed. So what you'll see when you use this database, or the users will see, is just whatever is there, whatever was recorded, and again, with that original potential bias, but now it allows the user, which is a community member, to do their own self-interpretation of what that cultural knowledge is, that plant use was or is. So, and I think that's really important that we have kind of a more, and that really is how the plant knowledge has evolved too, is it's a community of people with differing opinions and differing practices and views. That's how it is, and it kind of gets away from a static look at the Myaamia plant knowledge. It's fluid, and it still is today. So I'm not able, well, maybe I could try accessing the actual website. Tech help? I can try, but look at that, they're doing it for me. Can you log in for me, or should I? Oh. Okay, don't give this out. Mm-hmm. Of course. Nope. Too many people in the room to remember. There we go. So, let's browse. So here we have a list, and again, this isn't something that everyone would see. Not that it's secret, but there are a list of plants. You can go by, choose the letter that the scientific name starts with, and we could try common names too. I'm just realizing people might know those better. And some of them have a green check. That means they're approved. That means that they have gone through the process of, we've made sure that the information is accurate as possible and it's cleaned up, and that the Myaamia term associated with that plant is accurate as it's good to go. And I'm going to give an example of, the plant I'm familiar with, Leninja, or Asclepias syriaca, common milkweed. And here's what you would see, a little bit of just the basic information about the plant. But then under here, Myaamia archival sources, this is where are listed all the different records of that plant. And by record, that's the ethnographic way of just saying some information that was recorded about that plant by somebody at some point. It could be a Myaamia person, or it could be someone that recorded it that was from an outside source. Some of it is from published resources, books and things, and some of it goes back, some of it like the archival information, like this one. But this one particularly has a lot of information in it because there was a lot of knowledge within the community, and there still is, about this plant. And some of the information I recorded myself. Some of the information in here is from people that are sitting in the room that I spoke with, and I wrote it down and I put it in here. Oh, just so you know, I'll do questions at my table after the talk. Thanks. So there's one thing to look at. There's some other interesting things in here. There are some resources. If you would like, you can look at a bibliography of all the sources of information that were used in the last 20 years of gathering Myaamia plant knowledge. That is there. There are also, one of the things I like here is these legends, which just actually defines how I use terms in there. So again, I'm one person. I'm not a Myaamia tribe member, and I am working with the tribe and the community, but I came up with definitions kind of from the botanical point of view of, there's a lot of ethnobotanists out there that are non-indigenous people, and they came up with categories of plant uses for indigenous people, like customary use, customs, food, material uses, technology, medicinal. So what I did is I tried to refine those with working with the Myaamia Center and people that know more about it than I do, know more about the culture. But also being really explicit here. Here's the definitions we're using of how those uses were categorized and you can like it or not. And I like that it's so transparent, because this is a very iterative community type of knowledge, and it's important for everyone to have a say. When it's transparent, then everyone has a voice in it, and that's how the knowledge is evolving. So, it's kind of trying to force Myaamia plant knowledge into a Western science category, into a database, which is very structured, into all these categories, when it really, from my experience, is all about relationships. The plants, the relationships with the people and the plants with the plants and the soil and everything. And that kind of richness is hard to do in like a digital thing. But it gets at it. It's getting closer as I see all the connections made between the different databases too. So, and again, this information is another use, I think, of this database is that it is a sounding board. And I'll give a quick little anecdote from my own background. I lived a year in Guatemala, and I was there to help the Kekchi indigenous culture kind of recover from 39 years of civil war. They had lost a lot of their agricultural practices. I shouldn't say lost. This is not the group to say lost in. They stopped doing them for a while. They paused, and that was from cultural trauma. And what I was there to do was to help the nutrition of the people by growing nutritional crops, the ones that they stopped growing because they were fleeing violence. And I created a small, a couple acre demonstration garden for nutritious plants, and I was pretty new to the intercultural work, and I brought all these seeds down from the United States when I moved down there, and of plants that were high in vitamin A and iron, and said, here's the foods you need to grow, so your health is better, because I had the answers. And it didn't really work. After about a year, people would come to the demonstration garden and look, and mostly the campesinos would come and they would look and they'd be talking and kind of pointing at me like, and I realized the whole value of that was, well, one of my friends said, I had to play the fool. What I did was I gave them a reason to start talking to each other. They said, we don't do it like that. We don't grow that plant. We don't grow it that way. But they started talking. They started, some energy came back into their more traditional ways that they would farm. And I see this database somewhat like that. And this is, again, just kind of my opinion, but that it is a sounding board. Here's all the information that I gathered. It's there as bare and naked as we can present it, and as accurate. Now, hopefully people will start talking about what they do. I talked to enough Myaamia family members or families to know that one family harvests Leninja one way, another family harvests it a little bit different way. And sometimes some of those families would say like, no, we don't do it that way. That's just normal. Any kind of idea that there's some one way, and that's a very false presentation. And I think this allows people to have discussions and have diversity and have evolution of that knowledge. Another interesting aspect of this, and let me try to pull up this one species for you, but it's another strength of the database is that it is a placeholder for knowledge. I've already kind of touched on that, but there's some plant knowledge that isn't really complete, that we haven't learned enough for it to be complete. There's a plant called colic root. I don't have a picture, so maybe it doesn't really matter to pull it up or not. But we have a little bit of information that it was used as an antidote to poison and a snake bite remedy, but we don't know a lot about it. We're not sure that's exactly what the information recorded was talking about that species. So again, Western science, we're trying to draw one line between two things. That species must do this. It doesn't always work like that. But also just this database, we're holding that knowledge in a place, And as other information is learned, maybe through ILDA and who knows where else, sometimes other regional tribes that shared similar landscape to the Myaamia or share similar landscapes, some information might come from that too to fill in that picture. And we'll get until then, the database is a place to have that where you can finally put all those pieces together. Some of you out there, I know some people can really hold all these different pieces in their mind well, like my wife, and synthesize it in their head. I can't do that. So I think the database really seems like that's a strength to me too, that it can do that for us. We can see it all in one place. Okay. And that is about all I wanted to share on that. And I'm happy to field questions out at my table, but appreciate the funding from the Miami Tribe of Oklahoma for this continued work. And Mishinewe.